Sanders has been declared victorious in the Nevada caucuses. Yay! Yay! Exciting. I don't know what this is, but I just did it. And he was declared the victor a couple of hours ago with only like 4% of the precincts reporting, but because he had such a massive lead, I guess the projections were basically impossible for any of the candidates to make up like the 25+% lead that Bernie Sanders had on everybody else. And I mean, this is 3 for 3, I believe. I heard he's the only presidential nominee to ever win the first 3 contests in a row. So obviously he won Iowa, he won New Hampshire, he's just crushed it in Nevada. And so I'm going to go over a little bit of the polls, and then also some of the just different demographic breakdowns of where just Bernie Sanders just crushed it, just absolutely killed it. And I don't know, I don't know if I'm going to go through all of them. It's like 15, 20 plus categories. I'll leave the link to this article so if you want to check out the additional ones. I'm not going to go over, but he's obviously building, you know, just the most diverse working class coalition of people, just bringing all types of people together, working for the common goal of, you know, making the United States, making the U.S. government work for the average, everyday working person and not the billionaire owner oligarch class, as Bernie Sanders always points out. And it's just so awesome, and we just have so much momentum going right now. There's a huge movement behind Bernie and the ideas that he wants and, you know, represents, like Medicare for all, like a Green New Deal, like ending the wars, like legalizing marijuana, like canceling student loan debt, like free college. All of these just very, what are, you know, common sense things to most people. It's just the political elite, the establishment fights so hard to get tooth and nail against, you know, these very practical and reasonable changes. So, you know, we don't have 70,000+ people each year in the U.S. dying because they don't have health care, and we'll be saving $450 billion on by adopting a single-payer Medicare for all type system. That was just, both of those stats came out of the Lancet study that was released last week. So with 50% reporting, this was from the AP, Bernie at 46.6%. So I mean, that is just such a huge margin when there's, you know, so many candidates still in the race at this point, and just, you know, just speaks to, again, that just huge, you know, kind of modern day rainbow coalition that Bernie Sanders is building, I should say. I'm peeling the burn, obviously, it's on the brain. Biden at second, Crazy Uncle Joe 19.2%, so was that 27. Biden's down by like little over under 27% right now from Bernie. That's just huge. That is just so massive. Buttigieg, Mayor Cheat, 15.4 in third. Elizabeth Warren, I mean, another really poor performance for Warren. What, she got third in Iowa, I believe, fourth in New Hampshire, and fourth in Nevada. And again, once the states keep getting more and more diverse, which they are, Iowa and New Hampshire are very white states. I think around 80-90% of the population. I think it's actually around 90 for both of them. And Nevada is a much more diverse state. I believe it's somewhere around 30% of the population is Hispanic or Latino in Nevada, and Bernie, you know, has that diverse working class coalition. He has massive support from that community in particular. And Klobuchar in fifth at 4.5. So I mean, this is what a lot of left people on the left in general, I should say, have kind of been advocating, that Bernie has to win by these just huge, gargantuan margins, that they're not able to do any of their type of funny business to steal them out of delegates or votes or whatever, like happened in like what we saw happen in Iowa. And they couldn't do that here in Nevada because, like I said, with just 4% of the precincts reporting, Bernie Sanders had that 25+% lead. It was impossible for any of the, some brooms just fell down, any of the candidates to to make up that lead, and it's just. But again, we still need to act like we're 20 points down. Knock on doors if you can. I'm actually going to go canvass for the first time next weekend in Seattle, which I'm pretty excited about. Just get out there, do whatever you can. Knock on doors, call, text friends, family members, post on social media, donate if you can. All of that stuff. Do all of it, as much of it as you can, because this Bernie Sanders represents a once-in-a-lifetime candidate and movement to really positively transform and improve the lives of, for everybody in the United States. And then so just quickly, I'm going to go over some of these demographic breakdowns where Bernie Sanders is just crushing it with so many just diverse groups of people. It's just, really inspiring, and it obviously makes a whole lot of sense, but obviously if you don't listen to the mainstream media or just disregard that whole narrative, it's not the Bernie bros, that's a total myth, lie, and it really erases the very diverse working class coalition that Bernie Sanders represents, and the movement behind him is comprised of. It's just a huge diverse group of people who really think that we can positively transform this country so we don't have people dying because they don't have health care, so we can implement a Green New Deal so we actually have a livable planet for our generation and for future generations, to ending the wars, to ending the sanctions, to a more just foreign policy, to addressing the horribly racist criminal injustice system, the deportations, all of these things. It's just what was it, Cornel West, I heard Michael Brooks quote, it's well, anyways, I forgot. I'm gonna go, here's a really good quote, I'll try to find it. So Bernie, plus 56 with ages 17 to 29, Hispanic Latino plus 37, that is massive. Very liberal plus 32, women plus 14, Democrats, people who identify as Democrats plus 13, age 30 to 44 plus 31, that's just huge. And again, age 17 to 29 plus 56. So if you can get young people to turn out in record numbers, Bernie Sanders will be the nominee. He will also become the next president of the United States, because young people just in general tend to be more progressive, more left-leaning, more in support of these ideas. But that's not to say we can't obviously try to convince some of our older counterparts who see the world through a different lens, and maybe we can have some conversations and dialogue to try to get that ball rolling forward. Top issue healthcare plus 21, which obviously makes a lot of sense. He's the only one who's been clear and consistent that he's going to fight to make Medicare for all a reality. Day one that he's in office, it's one of his central campaign policies. He talks about it constantly on the campaign trail, on the debate stage, in interviews. He points out how it would save 70 plus thousand lives a year, $450 billion a year. It's the right thing to do on an ethical, moral level. We're the only industrialized major country in the world who doesn't guarantee healthcare as a human right. It saves money, makes sense on a fiscal level. He really hammers away that issue. He's been consistent on the decades, no flip-flopping, backpedaling, not talking about it anymore. Looking at you, Elizabeth Warren. Union household plus 15, super strong with unions. He wants to increase union membership quite substantially. I believe he was also the first presidential campaign to unionize as well. Men plus 22, college graduate plus 9, white plus 9. Support switch to single-payer government health plan plus 34, again for the same reasons I just mentioned. Top issue climate change, he's definitely the strongest on that issue. Huge supporter of the Green New Deal. He also, one of the reasons he didn't support Trump's trade deal, NAFTA 2.0, most people call it, is because there was no among other things, but they didn't mention climate. There was no environmental policy in it all. If we really want to tackle and take climate change seriously, it would obviously, would have been a huge part of that as well. other plus 29, independents or someone else plus 36. That's hugely important as well, because independents, swing voters, people identify themselves as moderates. When you actually break down these policies, things that Bernie Sanders supports, like, Medicare for all, like legalizing weed, like ending the wars, higher wealth tax, higher tax on Wall Street, canceling student loan debt, these type of things, most people, when you actually explain it and the benefits to them and their families, they support, Bernie Sanders and the policies that he supports. Somewhat liberal plus 14, and age 45 to 64 plus 9. So I think a few of the categories where obviously he didn't, just crush it like he did in all these categories, and there's even a few more I didn't list, and probably some more that this list didn't have either, was the 65 plus category. I think Joe Biden probably did the best there, which, again, we need to explain to our elderly folks in the U.S. that Joe Biden on the Senate floor vociferously, multiple times, was talking about how he wanted to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans benefits, any government program. That's Joe Biden. Look it up. It's on the record, as well as, he's just not trustworthy. And I think Joe Biden also, among the African American, the black vote, beat Bernie Sanders by, I want to say, 7 or 8 points in that category in Nevada. I could be wrong, but Bernie Sanders' support with the black community is definitely trending in the right direction, as it should be. His issues around criminal and racial justice are much better than Joe Biden's, not to mention that Joe Biden lies constantly, saying he was involved in the civil rights movement. He wasn't. I guess he lied about hanging out with Nelson Mandela recently, as well as being a huge supporter of the crime bill, talking about working with segregationists to not support busing, to desegregate the school system, and on and on. So Bernie 2020, let's keep up the momentum. This is super exciting, but we gotta, again, act like we're 20 points down and do everything that we can to make sure Bernie's the nominee, because he wins big like he did in Nevada tonight. Then the Democratic establishment, the DNC, the status quo defenders, the Liberal Party hacks aren't going to be able to steal it from him. So awesome news. Bernie 2020, not me, us.